Gabriel Garbin Arquitetura is an architecture firm based in Sao Paulo, led by Gabriel and Bruna Garbin. And since its founding, the studio has been inspired by minimalism with precision and function balance in harmony. With eye on details, the studio adapts textures and materials for unique solutions in every project that they make. And we have Gabriel Garbin with us today, and we will converse about fostering livability through nature and details. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Will you tell us how the studio started?
We start the studio as I graduating in 2001 with some partners. In 2007, Bruna started working as a partner in the office, significantly supporting the underexplored areas that need more attention, so that we could deliver the best project to our clients.
That's cool. How would you describe your design approach, and what was the main inspiration behind it?
We see cleanliness in the construction of ground plans, proportion, and volumes. We believe that this, combined with the use of natural materials, creates an atmosphere and a sense of well-being in the spaces. The integration between outside and inside without sacrificing privacy makes architecture light and transports the man to the ancestry. Our main inspiration is the moderns and the minimalist movement. Brazilian architecture, as well as of Latin America, was composed by the fusion of European colonial heritage with the native population. We did a rereading of the Mediterranean architecture by tropicalizing the elements, adapting them to our climate and to the basis of Brazilian modern architecture.
That's cool. So in all of your projects, we noticed that you pay a lot of attention, or you seem to really integrate nature into architecture. So we want to know, how do you think nature influences architecture and vice versa?
The analysis of the surroundings where the building will be built will define every architectural aspect. In my view, it is impossible to design a building as unique in space without taking into account its surrounding, topography, vegetation, and lighting. These are the main premises for design beginning. Obviously, we believe that the architectural concepts will also dictate the rules of how these elements will behave throughout the building, taking advantage of points of view on how living areas or intimate areas will behave with the surroundings will be governed by the architecture. We believe that architecture should interact without harming, taking part as a supporting actor and not as a transforming agent.
That's really cool. And then in what ways can architects accentuate emotional connection between people, nature, and the built space, especially in residential projects?
Well, there should not be a boundary between nature and building. The integration between man as well as between them and nature underpins what we believe as architecture. The building must create protection and shelter, but men need to live with their ancestry. The poetics of living and coexisting among men also refers to their relationship with the environment in which they are inserted. Architecture has his obligation.
Yeah. And so if we're already moving into talking about residential projects, wondering how can we also foster livability through nature and through detailed designs?
Do you want to talk something?
Okay. Shelter as a session should promote protection. But architecture has an obligation to promote shelter without creating the feeling of enclosure, as long as it's not an obligation of use. For this reason, we like to bring breathing points into the buildings through internal gardens, which help with natural lighting and create true breathing spaces. But as I said, protection needs to exist without oppression. Thus, we try to create architectural details that have protection, but that have visual and physical vanishing points that bring the sky into the spaces. We also create frames of these spaces with nature, transforming the landscape into elements of contemplation when looking from the inside of the environments to the outside of them.
That's cool. Will you share with us one or two of your projects that successfully demonstrated that?
We can mention as example the social part of the WP house, where the entire social area is integrated with the native forest that makes up the point of view of the project. The living room is protected by a roof and frames, but has a garden at one end and the native forest at the other. Both are subjects to integration, but can be completely sealed through the frames. The architecture was planned so that the building would be free in the landscape and privacy at the same time.
Very cool. Yeah, it seems very seamless, and we can all appreciate how you kind of integrate that very seamlessly. So lastly, how do you foresee the future of architecture?
We believe that the human beings tend to live more and more with nature without destroying it. Architecture plays a fundamental role of this transformation. Future generations will increasingly preserve and learn that the concept of living comfortably does not necessarily have to sacrifice the surroundings where the space is located. The concept of well-being is, in my way of thinking, directly related to quality of life. I cannot think of the architecture of the future of humanity as a civilization that ignores and does not preserve what brings them life. Vegetation, water, and air quality is fundamental for the living. Architecture in the future will equate natural extraction with the consumption of these inputs in civil construction, the recycle of materials, as well as conscious consumption will provide the necessary resources for the future of buildings. Architects will have the rule in the future, understanding the demand for what humanity needs as a situation of need and promoting comfort with aesthetics while is still regulation the conscious consumption of materials.
Yeah, I do agree. And I think it's a nice way to end, where we need to think about, the materials that we use as architects. And I think what I can really appreciate from you and your work is how you can very well integrate and draw inspiration from nature, try to bring that into the design. And even better, in times that we can make it very environmentally sustainable designs, right? We can use the environmental advantage, but at the same time, maybe we also contribute back to them. So thank you so much for sharing today. We really enjoy hearing about everything.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you, Karina.